Hello and welcome back to Ginge Undersea for another shark talk. Today we're going to be talking about one of the favourite species of shark for most people, the scalloped hammerhead. So let's dive straight in. So there are in fact 9 different species of hammerheads in the Sphyrnidae or hammerhead family. And this family of sharks is actually the most recently evolved sharks out of all of them. If you've watched my evolution talk, you'll know that sharks have been around for over 400 million years, and the oldest of the modern day sharks, the cow sharks, have actually been around for around 180 million years, and the majority of sharks we see in the ocean today have been around for about 100 million years. So this group of hammerhead sharks have only been around for 20 million years, so really they are quite a new addition to the shark species. Now the species we're going to focus on today is my favourite species of shark and a lot of other people's favourite species of shark, the scalloped hammerhead, Latin name Sphyrnaluini, in the hammerhead family, and all the hammerhead sharks are in the Carcaheniformes order of sharks, or the ground sharks, which has over 200 different species of shark in that one order. Now the scalloped hammerhead is in fact the 3rd largest species of hammerhead sharks, only beaten by the smooth hammerhead, which is slightly larger, and then the great hammerhead, which can get up to 6 meters long, which is really a massive shark. Now the scalloped hammerhead only ever reaches a max size around 4.2 meters, but is more often seen at around 3 to 3.5 meters long, and they reach ages of over 35 years, and it takes them about 10 or 15 years to reach maturity, depending if they're male or female. They are found circumglobal in temperate or tropical waters, so that means they are found all around the globe as long as the water is warm enough for them. So they can be found as far south as the coast of South Africa, but also as far north as the coast of Japan and the northern coast of the USA. And one of the most interesting behaviors of the scalloped hammerhead shark is the fact that they are pretty much the only shark species to congregate in large groups regularly. Now, we do see other shark species congregating for either feeding events like the sardine run or for migration such as the black tips along the coast of America, but these are all quite unique and rare annual events, where the scalloped hammerhead is the only species which actually is seen to be regularly gathering in groups of up to 100 or 200 sharks throughout the year, and scientists aren't 100% sure why they do this. It is thought that possibly it could have a benefit for feeding. They come up to shallow waters and congregate during the day, and then they separate and go into deeper waters to feed at night, so they come together maybe for feeding reasons, possibly also for mating. There's been some research done into the mating behaviors of scalloped hammerheads when they're in these large congregations, but it's also thought by some scientists that it may well be a social reason, so they can actually be gathering in these large congregations for social interaction. So we can't talk about a hammerhead species without talking about that amazing hammer-shaped head, or otherwise known as a cephalofoil. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the evolutionary advantages that cephalofoil gives the hammerhead, which is why they are one of the most effective hunters in the ocean today. So the first physiological benefit of having that big cephalofoil or hammer-shaped head is that they actually have much larger surface area to have their ampullae of Lorenzini on. So if you've watched my other talks about shark senses, you'll know that the sharks use ampullae of Lorenzini's tiny little pores that actually detect electrical currents. Now, the majority of sharks have a very narrow and pointed nose, and therefore have very limited surface area to fit these ampullae of Lorenzini on, where hammerheads, they have a very large surface area, and underside of their cephalofoil can be used for ampullae of Lorenzini, and this is equivalent to having a different size metal detector. If we're trying to detect something on the sand of a beach, if you have a very small triangular metal detector, it's going to take you a long time to comb the whole beach and you might miss stuff, where if you had a very large rectangular metal detector, you're going to have a much better chance of finding some metal a bit faster. And this is exactly the same method that hammerhead sharks use when they're hunting over the sand flats in shallow water. They will scan their head from side to side using this very large electro detector, and they're more likely to find those animals that are hiding under the sand faster. So the second benefit to that cephalofoil is that they have better binocular vision. Now, all other sharks have eyes on the side of their head, and they can get almost a complete 360-degree view, apart from a small blind spot in front of their nose and behind their tail. However, there's not much overlap of each eye, and therefore they don't have a binocular vision and don't have much depth perception. Where with hammerhead sharks, because the eyes are set much wider, they do in fact have a larger blind spot in front of their nose, but also this means they have a much more of an overlap of their eyes in front of them. This means they have a binocular vision directly in front of them and actually can gauge depth much better than most other sharks. So having those really wide set eyes actually gives them better vision, and they still have pretty much 360-degree field of view. So the third benefit of that cephalofoil adaptation is that they have a better olfactory sense, or smell, or at least directional smell. Now, the difference between the hammerheads with their nostrils right out on the edge of their cephalofoil and say a blue shark with its nostrils on its narrow snout only centimeters apart is that with those nostrils so close together, most sharks cannot tell the direction a smell is coming from. And that's the same in humans. We obviously have our nostrils very close together, and therefore when someone lets one rip, no one ever knows who let it go, because we can't actually tell the direction that smell's come from. Where with the hammerheads, with their nostrils so far apart, they actually have a much better directional sense of smell, because they can tell if a smell is hitting one nostril stronger or earlier than the other nostril, and therefore they can head directly to the smell source, where other sharks will have to swim around a little bit longer to actually identify the direction that smell's coming from. And finally, the fourth benefit that hammerhead sharks get from having that amazing cephalofoil is that they have much better maneuverability. So again, with that narrow flattening of their head and that cephalofoil, they can actually turn laterally much faster than a lot of other sharks, because it's a much narrower surface area. It's a bit like having the wing of a plane. As they turn, that cephalofoil cuts into the water much more effectively than a big bulky head would, and they can actually turn at much sharper degrees to turn back in the direction they came. And in fact, hammerhead sharks are pretty much the only shark to be able to turn at 360 degrees pretty much on the spot. So you can see why the hammerhead sharks are one of the most evolved species of shark and why they are such effective predators. So now let's talk a bit about their conservation status. Now, scalloped hammerhead sharks were unfortunately upgraded in 2019 on the IUCN Red List to critically endangered. This means that they are at an extremely high risk of extinction if the trends continue as they are. And this is really worrying. As we know, they are an amazingly evolved and incredible species. We know how important sharks are to the ecosystem, and this will be a real shame if we lose such a beautiful and unique shark species. So some of the reasons that scalloped hammerheads are so vulnerable to decline is, for one, they have a very large fin size compared to their body size. So shark fishermen who are targeting for fins will generally target scalloped hammerheads because they'll get much larger fins for each shark that they're caught. So this makes them a real target to that industry, but also due to the shape and size of the cephalofoils, they very easily get caught in nets, whether it's gill nets, drift nets, or even just ghost netting that's been left to drift into the ocean with no one picking it up. They're very commonly caught up in these sort of nets, because you can imagine with their cephalofoil, as soon as one part of it gets caught in, they can easily get tangled, unlike other sharks which might have a chance of sort of backing up slightly and being able to escape that net. And another problem is that scalloped hammerheads tend to be a very popular target for recreational shark fishing, which does put additional pressure on the species along with commercial fishing. So how can you help scalloped hammerhead sharks? For one, be conscious of the seafood you're putting on your plate. Please don't buy any seafood that is irresponsibly sourced and therefore causing the death of many animals, including turtles, scalloped hammerheads, dolphins, all these others in drift nets or in long lining or bottom trawling. So please be more aware of the seafood that you put on your plate if you do still eat seafood. Also sign petitions and always try and discourage the shark fin industry. Don't support any organizations or companies that are selling or supporting the shark fin industry. So thanks for joining today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed our talk on the scalloped hammerhead and find it as fascinating as I do. Don't forget, if you did get some value from today's talk, then please do give it a like on the button below. Don't forget to subscribe to continue learning more about other shark species and marine conservation in general. And also, if you do want to support this channel, then please visit my T-Mill store, which I will put in the bio below. And you can find some sustainably sourced clothing, all shark and ocean themed, just like this top here. All right. And not only is it supporting sustainable fashion, but it's also supporting my channel to continue getting this sort of information out there to as many people as possible. So thanks again for joining today, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.